So the last video had to do with certain loyalties in the instrument market and nationalism. I was questioned as to my ethics for supporting Chinese companies when I actually support instruments in general, no matter where they're made. There are many nationalities represented by the instruments that I show on this channel, that I work on, that I sell or play. It's almost immaterial where something's made to me. It's cost versus build quality are my main concerns. Although you do become aware of certain things about the manufacturing process that are typical to certain countries. So there are some generalizations that you can make, but it ends there, I think. Somebody has taken this a step further, and this video is about when opinions regarding guitars and making and origins and things like that cross over from becoming a cultural discussion to becoming A, xenophobic, and B, bigoted. And to illustrate this, let me tell you something that I've been dealing with recently. When I sell stuff on the Facebook Marketplace, I also forward those ads to a couple of local Facebook pages where people trade and buy gear. All right, it's not specified that these particular pages are for American-made gear or imported gear. People go on there and they advertise stuff that they're selling, whether it's something they've had knocking around personally that they've decided to sell, or if they're like me, they look for things they can fix up, set up, and sell. Some of it they keep, some of it they sell. And I've noticed a lot of people on those sites are selling stuff made in various countries, mostly Asian countries, and a lot of Chinese-made goods. It just happens. In fact, I looked at the last 30 things listed on one of those pages, and 23 of them were made in Asia, not counting any of my ads. I currently have 21 instruments for sale, I think, and most of them, the link has gone through on that site, which most people appreciate. I get a lot of likes, and I occasionally get somebody inquiring about an instrument through that particular site. I should also point out that at this point in time, as well as Chinese-made student quality instruments, I also am selling Seagull, Canadian-made, some Yamahas that are made in Indonesia or Japan, a couple of Grecos that it's a Japanese country, although they're made in China. They used to make Japanese Fenders. I recently sold a Cremona guitar that's made in Bulgaria, so it's European-made. Cordobas, which are made either in Spain or in China, depending on which series. So it's not a case of just putting all Chinese-made or all cheap guitars and ukuleles on that particular site. What happened is somebody complained to the legislators of that site, the what do you call them? The people that police those particular sites, and then one of those people got in touch with me to share that person's comments. Right away I can tell what kind of person I'm dealing with. I can tell what their political affiliations are, or I can guess, rather. The first thing is that they assume that I am some big company and I am warehousing hundreds of instruments, which is completely false. And I sent the person the picture of my bedroom where I have 21 instruments sitting ready to be sold. You know, I am not some big company. Neither do I go through any wholesale channels. I don't have any affiliations. If you're a wholesaler, it means like you have a contract with Takamine or Godin or Fender, and you have to buy so many pieces a year. A lot of times they won't even deal with you if you don't have a brick and mortar store. So very few people who are selling online or locally are going to be legitimate wholesalers. But this person insists that I'm a wholesaler. Second claim is that I'm flooding the market with all Chinese goods, which I've already explained I'm not. But it gets worse than that. Some of the comments that were shared with me are personal in nature and move into a discriminatory and rather ugly area. First of all, the denigration of China and Chinese goods, which I've explained on the last video, is senseless, really. When we live in a society with the kind of commerce setup that we have and the products that we currently buy, whether for household usage or for food or for garage household tasks, tools, things like that, we have a very, I think, extraordinary high percentage of Asian-made, manufactured companies, and that's not even getting into the tech companies and the computing companies. We're all reliant upon those economies and the shared economical equilibrium between our markets and their markets. It's something that's nuanced. It's complicated. It's not something that you can apply sort of a simplistic epithet towards. All China bad, all America good. Then it gets into the sort of fantastical realms, and I don't really want to go there. But this person, first of all, belittles China. So I run into these old timers that are into their Martins and Taylors, and they are still operating on some sort of 1991 mental model that all imported instruments are terrible and you should only buy US made. You should only buy Martins, Taylors, US Fenders, US Gibsons, stuff like that. And don't get me wrong, I love vintage guitars. I love American-made guitars. I love that whole market. If I can get my hands on that stuff, I will. And I've sometimes repaired, restored, fixed up, and sold those kind of instruments. I mean, I own an old American Guild. I own an old American Washburn from 1901. So I'm not adverse to this person's particular bent for those kinds of instruments, and that's what he sells on this particular site. What I am adverse to is him trying to bully in a very cowardly way, going through the people that run the site, getting my listings knocked off. So it's a competition thing where there's no real competition. I mean, if you know anything about the musical instrument trade, you know that the vintage market and the import market and the student market have existed side by side since the 50s, and that has not changed. Not everyone can afford a $2,000 vintage American-made instrument. Not everybody can find them. Buying a $200 Cordoba that's well made is a viable market. It's something that people want to be connected with. You've seen some of the guitars that I've shown on recent videos, some of the Yamahas, some of the Seagulls, some of the Breedlove, some of the Blue Ridges. These are very, very fine guitars at really good price breaks. They may be Chinese made, they may be other Asian manufactured, or they may be from other smaller countries, but that is not to their detriment. They are a very viable option in today's market. Even the cheaply made budget China made stuff, if it's set up right, some of it is also viable. And I'm very careful to point out on my videos which are worthwhile and which you shouldn't bother with. And you know that I have certain standards about fretboard wood and soundboard wood. You know, I don't propose people should go out and buy all basswood guitars with some mystery fretboard wood that's liable to warp. I do have standards, but there are, for somebody who's starting out to play a guitar, you know, going out and buying a Donna that's decently made and well set up for $100, as opposed to buying trying to find some all-American made alternative from this type of seller that I'm battling with is just not logical, right? But then the comments that ensued from trying to make this point clear through an intermediary get even worse. I mean, he says things like, "Oh, he should go to Wuhan and sell them directly," which is a loaded comment, isn't it? I mean, in the time of coronavirus, when we know the origin or we suspect the origin of the virus, it's a put down. It's racially loaded. It's xenophobic. It's borders on the edges of bigotry, in my opinion. And of course, the comments keep going from there. And this person calls me a liar and libels me, and is trying to have my posts removed. Now, if they were removed, it wouldn't really hurt my business, because my stuff sells regardless of that site. I get a few sales on that site. So if if I lost that avenue, it wouldn't be anything too detrimental. I don't think I'd even notice it, to be honest with you. It's just the principle of the thing. Here we have a typical bully with typical views, and the clues are all there as to his personality type and the kind of affiliations that he has politically and the kind of person that we're dealing with. Definitely first of all, a bully. Second of all, a bigot. Third, ignorant. Fourth, outdated in their views, and we've talked about this in the past. I run into guys, and it's always guys in the guitar circles, that have these outdated opinions about guitar companies, guitar manufacturing, and I'm not questioning their subservience to companies like Gibson and Fender, or even if they want to buy from a specific origin. That's all fine. I mean, everybody has their own prerogative on these things. What I object to is the belittling of others, the belittling of other nations, and trying to control other people, trying to bully other people, trying to take out their competition when there's not really a competition. You know, me selling a Cordoba is not going to stop him selling his $2,000-$3,000 55 Fender Telly. It just isn't. These markets subsist side by side, always have, always will. So it's really foolish, really juvenile that I have to deal with this situation. And I just wanted to put it out there because I think I'm going to send this person this video. I think we're dealing with somebody who is very poorly developed in their thinking, possibly education, and in their social outlook, and in their view of the world. And all those things are fine. Everybody has a right to opinions, but when it crosses over into bigotry, xenophobia, discrimination, and threat. I mean, this person started making threatening comments towards both me and the site administrator that I'm talking about. Then it becomes something other than. Then I take umbrage, take issue with it. So just wanted to put that out there, basically to get some responses. I don't need your support. I don't need your sympathy. I'm fine. There's no worries. It's more of a interesting talking point than anything. I run into this kind of thing a couple, 3 times a year maybe, so it's nothing new. It's just something to talk about, something to educate people about, and it makes for an interesting discussion. So I thought I'd put it out there. Alright folks, back to instruments on the next video. See you then.